Good news is that while you're listening to this, the Guardians haven't lost another game. They are off on Thursday after a sweep at the hands of the Houston Astros. The bad news is they got swept by the Houston Astros, and you're still stuck with me on Locked On Guardians. Talk about that, a realistic state of the Cleveland Guardians roster for the rest of the 2023 season going to 2024, and potential pitching addition for the rest of the year on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another solo edition of Locked On Guardians, and happy Thursday to everybody. The Guardians will not lose today. You can feel good about that. Get out and enjoy the sunshine and bask in the glow that the Guardians are undefeated today because they didn't lose. Today's great episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player being the perfect fit. We'll see where the Guardians go with that in the future. Same with your vehicle. So for the parts to fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay Guaranteed Fit, ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. I'm Justin Latta, your host. Not traded at the trading deadline. You are stuck with me again until Jeff comes back. I'm still flying solo. Well, the Guardians didn't get no hit Wednesday. In fact, for a brief time, they held a lead. It was brief. It was definitely brief. They held a 2-run lead in the second inning thanks to a bases loaded single from Gabby Arias, or bases loaded double, I should say. He also had two RBIs in this game, had 2 strikeouts too. Then it was over. A 2-run homer by Chas McCormick ended that, and then after Tanner Bybee came out, Nick Sandlin took his turn at having a bad game, as a lot of the guys in the bullpen have. You know, they have a bad game, and then they're good for 4 or 5 outings in a row. But then somebody else does that where they have a bad outing, and then they have 4 or 5 good outings in a row. Like today, Sam Henches, who's had a tough year and gave 2 hits but got an out. Trevor Stephan, who's had a very tough month of July, and now it's August. He was perfect in 1 inning and on 10 with 10 pitches and 2 strikeouts. Same with Del Santos, who's had his blowups. He had a perfect inning. A couple days from now, one of those guys will probably give up runs again, and it'll look bad. That's how the season has gone. It's another inconsistent team. Very frustrating game once again. The silver linings, real quickly, from the Houston series. I know they got no hit and they got swept, so probably like, really, we're doing silver linings from a sweep. Well, Noah Syndergaard survived. I don't think he pitched all that great. I think he got a little bit lucky and he utilized the big ballpark, and he didn't look for a park in Houston that the ball can really get out of in right field and left field. A lot of balls hit the center where it's deep there, and thankfully Miles Straw, I don't know if that's the right word to say thankfully about Miles Straw, but he was in center field and made some catches when Noah Syndergaard started. And he looks like he's going to be healthy enough to pitch this weekend against the White Sox. So that's interesting. Good. It's not bad. I don't know if it's neither bad nor good. Gavin Williams pitched fine on Tuesday. He had a couple of walks, obviously. The control wasn't great. Held the Astros, to 2 runs. That's a good thing for a young starter. He just, like I said, his velocity was staying up throughout the game. His breaking stuff looked a little more crisp. He was comfortable throwing the breaking stuff a little bit more, not just all fastballs. Tanner Bybee, same thing. Control issues. A lot of pitches were high. He was throwing a lot of sliders and fastballs up out of the zone. Could be a case of just trying to be too fine. Gavin Williams said that in his start too, and I think Bybee would say the same thing, just trying to be a little bit too fine. And that's a good lineup in Houston, right? You've got, I know, Mauricio Dubon's not that great, and Jeremy Pena has a World Series MVP to his name, but he's not having a great season. But, man, the teeth of that lineup is tough. Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman, Yordan Alvarez. Jose Abreu's not having a great year, but he has turned things around in the last month or so. And he struck out 3 times against Tanner Bybee, so kudos to Tanner, or at least 2 times. Chas McCormick obviously beat the Guardians single-handedly. He hit a solo homer and a 2-run homer. He's having a great year, 922 OPS. Xander Diaz, former Guardian, 2 hits. Former Guardians prospect, I should say. Still a good lineup in Houston. They are a top 10 offense right now, so navigating that lineup is tough. Guardians pitching did a great job this year. The offense didn't do a good job. Shocking, right? That's what we've been all year. And that's what I want to talk about. Why are we not being realistic about this team? that is why I know a lot of you in the comments have been frustrated the last couple of days. And thanks for showing interest. I see a lot of new names in the comments, a lot of new names popping up from people we haven't seen all year. So if you're new commenting, let me know how much of the show are you watching? How much of the team are you watching? How much are you listening to the podcast? Because I feel like if you're following this team all year, some of your comments don't quite reflect where the state of this team has been all year. All year, we've talked about how this team has been inconsistent every single series. The Guardians got swept by Houston. Before this, look, they took 2 or 3 from the Royals, and they took the first game from the White Sox, and they were on a roll. I said a week ago at this time, I said, hey, Guardians off to a good start in that Chicago series. If this is a good series, they can put themselves in a good position going forward into this tough month of August if they want to win this division. Guess what? They lost the next 2 to the White Sox because they couldn't beat Touki Toussaint and Mike Clevenger. And then they went out and got swept by Houston, which is going to happen, right? They've done this all year, right? They took 2 of 3 from the Chicago Cubs, who are hanging tough. Then they went out and lost 2 or 3 to the Braves. They went out and took 3 or 4 from the Royals. Guess what? They went out to lose 5 in a row because they lost to Texas after the All-Star break, or 3 in a row to Texas, the All-Star break. They went out and beat the Pirates and the Phillies, and then they showed up and they laid an egg against the Royals in the first game, and then they took 2 or 3 from that. Earlier this year, they beat this Houston team back in Cleveland 2 of 3. What did they do? They went out and lost 2 or 3 to the Padres, and they lost 2 or 3 to the Athletics. They swept Oakland, went out and lost 2 or 3 to the Brewers. They have not been consistent all year, and it's mostly because of the offense. Now, yes, not having Shane Bieber and Tristan McKenzie absolutely hurts. And if those 2 guys are healthy all year, this team's probably in better shape. But the fact is, when those guys were pitching, when Shane Bieber was pitching, how many times have the offense didn't support him? The offense hasn't been good all year. And if you're saying, well, this team, I still am having a hard time understanding people's reactions to the Guardians not adding at the trading deadline. This is a team that is in the worst division in baseball. And I know people are going to say, well, it's better to get in the playoffs than not. And I've said that too. It's better to get in the playoffs than not. But that comes at a cost. And I didn't see a player traded that made a major difference at the deadline. Like, the best 2 hitters traded at the deadline were Randall Grichuk and Tommy Pham. And, I'll listen. Tommy Pham in right field, that's fine. I would have been fine with that. The Diamondbacks got a teenage outfielder for him. The last thing the Guardians gave a teenage infielder went really well. Tobias Myers, right? Everybody remembers that trade. And let's see, the trade for Randall Grichuk, 2 really good minor league pitchers went to the Rockies for that. That would have been a tough to swallow too for Randall Grichuk. And tell me, to putting those 2 guys in right field, moving Will Brennan to center field, does that make you feel better about the Guardians offense going into the postseason or trying to win this division? Because it's on the margins at best, and that's probably all they could really do. Outside, I mean, you send Will Brennan to AAA, or you put him in center field, and you send Oscar Gonzalez down. Yeah, I'm cool with all that, but I'm telling you, I don't think it makes it as big a deal as you think it does. A player out there that this team needed didn't exist. Everyone's like, they did terrible in the trades for Aaron Savali and for Josh Naylor or for Josh Bell. And before anybody says it, I saw Josh Bell's good game on Wednesday, whatever. And Ahmed Rosario hit a home run for the Dodgers. Guess what? Ahmed Rosario played second base for the Dodgers. And he hit a home run against a lefty. All things that would make him a better player that didn't happen here. That's what you should be mad about. Not that he's doing it somewhere else. It's that he didn't get put in that position here. That's the problem. So, yeah, I mean, there are certainly guys that you could have shuffled around here, but the calculus is you're still going to be going with Steven Kwan and Andres Jimenez and Josh Naylor and Jose Ramirez, Will Brennan, Bo Naylor, Gabby Arias. Those are the guys you're still going with. The bullpen is still, the guys who are here are going to be here. They could have made a small trade for a relief arm. Prices were expensive in terms of trading for guys. And everybody's saying they're half game out, they're half game out. You're judging this team's position right now based on the AL Central. You're not judging them against the Orioles, who are playing really well, who added 1 pitcher. You're judging them against the Rangers and the Astros, who they just got swept by. The Rays, who did add Aaron Savali. The Blue Jays. You need to judge the Guardians season against all of them, not the AL Central, not the JV division this year. for God's sakes, the Twins sat back and did absolutely nothing. They traded a reliever of theirs that was struggling for a middling reliever from the Marlins for whatever. That was nothing. They did absolutely nothing. And that's a team that really needed to add because they went all in on Joey Gallo and adding Christian Vasquez and bringing back Carlos Correa after that miserable, weird offseason. They didn't go all in either. Neither of these teams really have a good shot in the postseason. You might say, you can get in and do anything. Yeah, maybe the Guardians, if they somehow won this division and you've got, Williams and Bybee and Allen in the 3 games, the pitching might give you a chance to win, sure. And you might score enough runs to do that. I don't know. Maybe. But if you've watched this team all season, I don't know how you could sit here and say the offense is good enough to do anything significant in the postseason. And yes, I would rather make the postseason than not make the postseason and play meaningful games in September. That could still happen. They're still going to play meaningful games in September because I don't think the Twins are going anywhere. The Twins have good pitching, but their offense stinks too. I don't think they're I don't think they're going to run away with this division. They might win it by if they win it by 5 games, I won't be surprised, but that could be just late in the year. I still think it might come down to who's hot the last 2 weeks of the season. But outside of a Randall Grichuk or Tommy Pham, that doesn't change this team's, outlook, keeping Aaron Savali. The team has struggled all year with this offense and Aaron Savali. They had a below 500 record with Aaron Savali. So what are you telling me that you think is going to be different in the postseason or down the stretch with Aaron Savali or with Tommy Pham, one hitter who's, a journeyman outfielder who is a marginal upgrade, and Randall Grichuk. And then you're trading some really good prospects for that. And I know people don't like to be prospect huggers. The prices for rental players, this market was high. It was a seller's market. The Tommy Pham deal, would have been fine. You put him in, and like I said, you put Will Brennan in center field, you put Tommy Pham in right field, and move Miles Straw to 4th outfield, which is kind of becoming the norm more days than not with him. That'd have been fine. I think Randall Grichuk, who I really liked, went for too high of a price for my liking. I just didn't see a trade out there that made this team any better going into the last 2 months of the season, the postseason, that was worth it. And I think the Guardians feel the same way. That's why they did what they did. Everybody upset about the trades. Can't judge those right now. I know they didn't help the Guardians in 2023, but we're going to talk about their process a little bit throughout this episode. I said earlier in the week, I want to talk about the Guardians' process and where they're going from here. But I think it's just important to be realistic. This team is an inconsistent team. I'm going to drop one more stat on you about the drop off from last year to this year for the Guardians team, where they're struggling and why they've been inconsistent and why that doesn't make a good fit to buy in for a postseason run, as frustrating as it is, coming up on Locked On Guardians. So stay tuned. Want the chance to win more money with less picks? Head to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. On Friday, if you think the Guardians can come out swinging against Michael Kopech on Friday night for the White Sox, definitely a good time to play one of those hitters. So if you think that maybe Jose Ramirez is due for a big weekend, maybe Josh Naylor returns from injury, we're going to talk about that. You sure do on Sleeper. You can swing for the fences up to 100 times payout. All you have to do is choose 2 or more players that you like and select more or less in their stat categories like home runs, strikeouts, hits, and more. Get your picks right, and you could win big. Logan Allen pitches on Friday night against the White Sox. They just traded Jake Berger. Big piece of their lineup they don't have. Can he navigate the White Sox lineup a little bit better on Friday? Strikeouts for him. That lineup looks a little bit lesser right now than they have in the past. So get your sleeper picks ready for Friday, this Guardians-White Sox series coming ahead before the Toronto series, and you can pick some Toronto players to hit some home runs off Guardians pitching. You also are going to want to use promo code LOCKEDON to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. As I mentioned, Guardians off today, but Friday they're back at home at 7:10. If you can't be there, listen to all the hometown action on your Sirius XM app. Just search Guardians on the app. Wanted to bring up really quickly, too, about the Guardians front office flying to Houston to talk with the players about their frustrations. I got to say, I understand their frustrations. It's tough. And again, I said this the other day on the podcast. They don't really have a voice in the locker room player-wise that can lead them through this sort of thing. They are new. They are rookies. They are navigating through this thing for the first time. Last year, the front office held pat because they wanted to see the young players play and things were going good, and they didn't want to displace guys in the lineup already. They kind of did the same thing here. I mean, I'm sorry, Josh Bell, I know everyone's going to say, oh, he went 3 for 4 on Wednesday. That's great. Wasn't helping it. Wasn't getting it done here. And I don't think anybody wanted him to pick up his $16 million option next year and do the same thing over again and saddle up first base DH once again. If you can make an improvement there, which they almost never do, considering they swing and miss on free agents a lot. And the Aaron Savali thing, it's tough because the rest of their I'm sure the team knows that their pitching staff is very broken up in terms of injuries. So trading him was tough, especially when he had club control left. But at the end of the day, if this team plays better, they're not in this position. The Guardians can go out and make some different trades if this team's in a better position going into the postseason. It's up to the players. It really is here. These guys it's tough because they're still establishing their big league opportunities. Like Stephen Kwan's a second-year player, and he's gotten better as the season's gone on for a little bit, I think, but he has had his struggles. Andres Jimenez has regressed a little bit, but he's still solid. You have Jose. Josh Naylor was hurt again on Wednesday. He's got a sore side muscle. The Guardians are going to get him looked at to see if anything more serious is going on. You hope not, because, boy, this offense really can't take that right now. So we'll see. Will Brennan. I love Will Brennan, but he is really kind of disappointed this year. He has struggled a lot in his approach. Oscar Gonzalez is up and down, and, more chances for him to play to see what he can do. You're back in a position. Bo Naylor is going to be here next year. Gabriel Arias, Tyler Freeman, Brian Rocchio was up on Wednesday as well. Good to see, even though Freeman was hurt. See if we can see more Rocchio. Got to find more time for these guys to play. Would love to see more at bats from David Fry. Would love to see, again, Gonzalez in right field and Straw on the bench, because you know what you got in him. But the Guardians are deciding whether or not these guys are part of the future or not. That, again, I hate to say we're in that mode again, but we are. They won the division last year despite being a young team, and the Twins didn't really they kind of fell apart at the end too. And the Guardians did what they were supposed to do to hold them off and got hot at the end of the season. Also, be realistic. The schedule has changed too. Remember, the Guardians got to play the Royals and the Tigers. They beat up on the Twins late when they fell apart. The White Sox stunk. This year, you've got, like I said, Toronto, Houston, Tampa Bay, Cincinnati is good. The Dodgers are still the Dodgers. You've got the Angels coming to town. The Rangers and the Orioles are good now. This is not the old schedule anymore. That is part of it as well. This team should have played better if they wanted to get reinforcements. And even saying that, other teams got to go out there and make trades too. You can't just force a trade out of nowhere. Like, they could have made the small marginal changes. But guess what? If Josh Bell did what we thought he could do coming into the season, this offense is in a very different spot. Same with Mike Zunino. Things didn't work out. If some of these prospects, and again, they're young, so you have to be, proceed with caution and expectation. And we said coming into this year, expectation is the thief of joy. Last year they were, really good, and things worked out for them a lot. And this year they created expectations. They didn't meet up to those expectations because they're a young team. They're going through growing pains. Last year things really came together for them. And looking at last year's stats, there's a lot of places you can look where they're struggling. I tweeted this the other day. Base running. I said this the other day on the podcast too. Fangraphs base running statistic that talks about steals and taking the extra base and tagging up on fly balls, going first to third. They are at 2.3 on that score this year. That is 12th in the league. Last year, this team was 4th in the league at 13.2. They stole 119 bases last year. They've only stolen 87 this year. They're not going to come close to that number. And the new rules were supposed to benefit them. Remember, they haven't. Bullpen ERA this year, 3.61. While that's still 3rd in the league, you can clearly see they had their inconsistencies. And last year, it was a 3.05. Things have not played their way this year. They have had inconsistencies. If you are watching this team day in, day out, or even week to week, I don't know how you could sit there and say this is a team you feel good about in the postseason. I don't know how you could sit there and say any trades that were made at the deadline, we're going to take this team and make this team any different through the rest of the season and in the postseason if they even made it. I don't see how you can see that. I still want to talk about the Guardians process and where they're at with the front office and roster building right now. I want to talk about one more pitcher that they could add if they're still wanting to make something happen here. And we'll talk about Friday's show coming up on Locked On Guardians. So stay tuned. Enjoy the Guardians off day Thursday, but Friday, make sure you are listening to the hometown action on your SiriusXM app. You can find that hometown broadcast by searching Guardians on your SXM app. Okay. The Guardians clearly have a type of player, right? We know the type. They like guys who make contact, don't strike out, and, they're looking for guys who might have power potential or they think they can teach guys to for more power if they make contact. And they're like guys who are up the middle. We know they like this type. Kyle Manzardo does fit that type. Kyle Manzardo is a guy who doesn't necessarily have fantastic raw power. Like his exit velocities, in fact, are in line with Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez, I don't think anybody would say has great raw power, but he gets the most out of his pop because he knows pitch selection, knows what pitches to try to drive. He gets the ball in the air consistently to his pull side. That's where his power is. Kyle Manzardo, very similar. I'm not saying Kyle Manzardo is Jose Ramirez, but it seems like the Guardians are trying to recreate Jose Ramirez because Juan Brito kind of has that little bit to him as well. It just seems like the Guardians are trying to find more of those types. They are all in on this type of prospect. I think it's fair to talk about whether or not this front office. Now, again, the front office, Chris Antonetti won the 2023 Executive of the Year award. Tito won the Manager of the Year award, and those can be subjective based on expectations. And it's, fluke seasons do happen sometimes. Things do come together. So it's fair to question how good this roster is going forward. They are betting on a lot of these same type of players. Like you have Jose Ramirez to build around. He's going to be 31 here soon. You better build something around him good because you're not getting a player like that on a contract like that probably again for a long time. Josh Naylor has had a breakout season, but you've surrounded him with, they paid Andres Gimenez, who had a great year last year, hoping that they had a guy locked in. He has regressed. We'll see what happens going forward. But I think it's fair to question, like you have to really buy in on this roster. They're going to make it work. The Guardians seem to me like they want to be the San Antonio Spurs. They had in their heyday, they had, at least in this last, 20 years or so, have had Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker and Tim Duncan, and they were a model of consistency, right? They always had Greg Popovich. They had the same GM. They were able to put, role players around those guys. And baseball is obviously very different with more players. You can't rely on three guys to soak up the bulk of your talent and your playmaking abilities in baseball. You have to have a complete roster and a tough lineup. This lineup on any given day, is very inconsistent. It's still a lot of young players. Like I said, I like Will Brennan. I really do like his bat a little bit. There's still no guarantee he is part of this club's core future. Oscar Gonzalez, same thing. Bo Naylor's a top prospect. We'll see if he sticks. Gabby Arias has what a lot of people think a lot of upside, but the Guardians are going to have to see if they can get that out of him, or they're going to have to find a way to determine if he's part of the future, or Brian Roque or Tyler Freeman. They're going to hope they get Andres Gimenez back of last year or in some form. Stephen Kwan looks like a major league player. I don't know if he's he's an average major leaguer, which you need a lot of those in your roster. But the way they've built this farm system is a lot of the same players. Like, I think we can all agree they figured out pitching for the most part. There's a lot of questions to be asked about some of the pitchers they've drafted recently, at least this year. And there's been a lot of injuries in the system. But this is a young team. So part of not trading for not having room or saying you don't want to bump any of these guys off the roster or back to AAA because they're young and you want to see them and see what they want to do or see if they can be a part of the future. The Guardians are built on stability, but sometimes and I'm not suggesting I think anybody should be fired, but I think it's fair to question the process. Like, if this whole thing doesn't work out with these players, if this archetype of player, this Will Brennan, Gabby Arias is a different type of player. It's more of an upside swing, but they invested in Miles Straw, who was glove first, and they were willing to deal with the bat, which hasn't been good. The Stephen Kwan, who's been solid. The Freemans and the Rocchios, who don't necessarily have a whole lot of power, but are solid gloves, solid contact guys. Manzardo has a little bit more power than that. You'll hope Chase DeLauder becomes a power hitter, but Angel Martinez, Angel Janau, Juan Brito, Jose Tena has really struggled, although he's been better recently. But my point is, they don't have a diverse farm system. They have a lot of guys like, George Valera, not necessarily working out right now. We'll see what happens to him here in the future. Obviously, Espino's hurt. They have a collection of a lot of these same players, right? The farm system isn't quite as good right now because of graduations, but if these things don't work out, if this type of player that they've bought in so heavily on, the contact first, the up the middle athleticism, the ability to make contact and some speed and not strike out, you still have to be able to work walks too. That matters, working a pitcher's pitch count. If this entire philosophy doesn't work out and you're spinning your wheels for the next couple of years, trying to see if this guy sticks, like we did this with Bradley Zimmer, we did it with Jake Bowers, all these young guys, they have to commit to young guys, see if they're gonna be part of the future, if they can win a division with this team. They did win a division with this team last year. So I'm not suggesting, anybody be fired for this, obviously, but I think it's fair to question the process. Like, are they putting players in the best position to win? Do they have the right skill set right now? Because they're last in OPS, they're last in hard hit rate, they are last in home runs. And I don't think you need to be first in Major League Baseball in homers to win a division or win a championship, but you certainly can't be last. But this team's gonna, without short of making a trade where you're sending a couple of prospects and maybe one of the prospects that's on the big league team right now, you're bringing back most of the same team next year, and you're going to see if this works again. So you're on year 3 of a very young roster, still a bunch of 25 and 26 and 27-year-olds with Jose Ramirez going into year 3, and you're not, obviously you're not going to walk to a division title next year again. It's fair to question if this is going to work out. It's going to be next year is going to be a big year. Now the Guardians again could still wind up backing into this division this year. If by some grace of God, one of Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie comes back in September and pitches well, that's a ginormous boost. Hopefully Josh Naylor's okay. I don't think the offense is consistent enough, but the Twins aren't that great either. I don't know if they're going to get through this August schedule they have, or the September schedule is not much easier, but I do think the division is going to come down to whoever's playing the best at the end of the season. It's going to be at least close. But I think it's fair to question, is this going in the right direction? Like, this team has done generally well in their trades, player acquisition, they seem to do well with. But, let's see, Kwan drafted, Brennan drafted, Gonzalez, international free agent who we'll see. Bo Naylor, a draft pick. They traded for Miles Straw. Rocchio and Freeman were acquired internally through international free agency in the draft. The rotation is 3/5 right now through the draft, and 5/5 if you get Bieber and McKenzie back. We think this front office does pretty well in trades, and they do, but if this group of players they're betting on right now, this window doesn't work out, this window where you have Jose Ramirez, and none of these young guys come through to make it work in the next couple of years, or if they can't make a trade we've been talking about 2 or 3 years now, we've been talking about this position player group, or just this set of prospects in general. And if they can't make it work with them, or if they can't swing a trade to turn some of these prospects that they can't play into major league talent to help the current team right now, and that might include trading someone from the current team, it's fair to question the process and see what they need to change. And I'm not saying that means anybody has to be fired, but I'm saying it's fair to question the process and see if what they're building is actually working, and if they have the right people in place to make it all work. I think you have to constantly question. Anytime you have a season like this, you kind of have to question what went wrong. And yeah, this is the larger the same group last year that went to the ALDS and was one game away from getting to the ALCS. And they thought that bringing in Josh Bell and Mike Zunino were going to supplement that group and be better, but that didn't work out. So that's another question to ask yourselves about free agency and who they target there and why those don't work out. But, again, you're going into year 3 next year with this kind of group of players that you've been betting on for the last couple of years to see if this farm system comes through. If you can't consolidate a couple prospects into areas of need, if some of these guys don't pan out and you're not identifying a core consistently, it's fair to question the process. Absolutely. Dallas Keuchel was released by the Twins, or he opted out of his contract the other day. He had an opt out in his deal because he wasn't added to the major league roster. Dallas Keuchel has not been good for a couple of years. Now his last productive year was 2020. And if you want to go back further than that, 2018 was the last time he was really healthy and pitched like a mid-rotation starter. So it's been a while, and he's still only throwing 87, 88, which he got hit really hard last year throwing that. The numbers in the minors, despite that, were pretty good. He had a couple of games where he missed a lot of bats. He had 21 whiffs against the Durham Bulls, which is the Rays AAA team, which is a pretty good lineup in AAA. That's also a good hitter's ballpark. I'd be curious to see if the Guardians take a shot at him. They certainly need someone who can give them innings. There's no downside. I don't know if there's anybody else out there who can guarantee him any innings at this point, especially for a team that's quote unquote in the race. I guess the Twins felt like they didn't need him. I'd be interested to see if the Guardians take a shot. They may not, because they're banking on health, which is a major question for a lot of the rotation. So we'll see. It's just an interesting guy to take a shot. If it doesn't work out, you cut him, and that's the end of the story. And, at the very least, if he does well, you've got a guy to soak up some innings and could help you through the end of the year. And if you want to say you made an addition, quote unquote addition, there's that. Want to thank you all for listening, all the comments. I know a lot of you, again, are fired up. Thanks for sticking with us through all this. And I hope you're listening to the words I'm saying. I'm trying to at least share some what I think is going on with the team and their thought process and just the state of the team overall. And I'm okay with difference of opinion, but I feel like some people just aren't really listening to the words that are being said, or they just want to get angry. And you can comment all you want, and we're not going to tolerate swearing or any abusive language either. So if you do those sort of things, be yelling into the void, because you'll be muted or blocked. So just so you know. No game on Thursday means Friday will be an Around the Farm Friday. We'll take a trip around the minor leagues, and it'll be a mailbag day. So if you've got questions for Friday's podcast, put them in the comments on YouTube, tweet at me on Twitter, or whatever you want to do to find me somewhere for questions for Friday's show. So thank you for listening once again. Enjoy the Guardians off day. They didn't lose. Go Guardians, go. Let's try to beat the White Sox this time.